Welcome back to the Gone for 10 show, but don't go to the sin bin just yet. You're with Larry, your host, as always. And make sure, of course, if you are new here, you need to hit that subscribe button. Do like the video. Otherwise, you can go for 10. But the wonderful guests that I have joining me in the glorious sin bin, I will call it, the one, the only, Bravedog, synonymous with Bulldogs fans. How are you this evening, mate?
I'm doing fantastic.
All right, great to hear.
How you going?
I'm good, mate. I'm good. I mean, this is a pre-record for anyone watching, but it is 9:11 p.m. on a Monday night. I mean, it's Monday, but look, mate, you've lifted my spirits. I'm happy to have you on. I've been an admirer from the distance, and I remember my earlier years in the kennel saying, who is that strange yet awesome man with his face painted down there, geeing all the fans up through some tough years, I might add. So full credit to you. But we have to, firstly, before we get into Bravedog, you obviously are a human being with a name and an identity. You're not Scottish. Please introduce yourself to the masses.
Okay, so the name behind the face paint and the character Bravedog is Alfio. A lot of people call me Alfie as a nickname. I've been a supporter all my life. You know, I was born in Canterbury, raised in Belmore, Campsie. The whole family are Bulldog supporters. It's certainly in the DNA. We live and breathe it. It's everything for us. So very proud.
You mentioned to me earlier that you actually have an Italian heritage. Look, I'm a fond football fan, so I wouldn't be doing my duties if I didn't ask you, do you follow the round ball game? And do you have a club that you support, or are you fond of the Italian national side?
I love the real football. I absolutely love the round ball game, which is known as the real football. Let's make that very clear.
Good man. I like it.
But these days, being a parent, running two businesses, Bravedog takes a lot of my time because, and I'll get into that, there's a lot of like content making, and that's all for bringing people together, fan engagement. But again, I'll get into more detail later in the program. But in terms of the round game ball, I've always been a fan. My father and I always watched the overseas, the derbies in Italy, the World Cups, the Euros. So it's also very much part of our family, growing up watching the football. Our team growing up, I don't watch it and follow it much now, but the team that we always have followed is Juventus.
Okay. Good team.
The Premier League, I have to say, it's not a league that we have followed very closely, but always been a fan of the real football. It's the world game. I mean,
It is the world game. And those who have just started sitting in here for the last 2 minutes are probably wondering, am I clicked on the right video here? So let's rip into rugby league, but it's a nice
rugby
background.
League, come on.
That's rugby league, absolutely. Alfie, I will ask you, let's talk about the man behind the face paint, Bravedog. When was Bravedog born? And even before that, how did you stumble upon this idea?
Let me firstly, for those that didn't realize earlier when I did, talk about Bravedog as myself and probably thinking, he's not Scottish. I apologize because I'm very sure for the longest time people were convinced that the man dressed up was actually Scottish. But to answer your question, it's a complex one to answer. But let's go back to when I first put the face paint and the motivation really to go out there dressed as a 13th century Scottish hero, right? Braveheart. So at the time, I mean, I've been a fan. I've been going to the first game was 1994 when I was 13. And I remember following the Dogs as early as 7, 8. And in fact, my earliest memory was actually the 1988 grand final. And I vividly remember going into class. I was living at the time in North Shore and nobody was going for Canterbury, except for me, of course. And the feeling of that pride, like walking in there and thinking to myself, we won. But going back to Bravedog came about actually during a time when I was going through some tough times, some challenging times, some personal stuff that I was going through, and I was struggling with my mental health. And I'm not ashamed to admit it. It's something that we all go through, and it's very much part of, I guess I call it my mission as a character of Bravedog. And that includes, bringing people together and celebrating positive mindsets. And of course, celebrating this awesome club, this club that's got so much history. But I was motivated. I just basically, my first motivation when I put on the face paint and started dressing up was really to bring some fun, some X factor into fan engagement, like the whole process of going to a game and meeting people. I just always loved the idea of revving up a crowd and just taking it to the next level and bringing people together. So that was, I guess, the initial motivation. As time went on and I realized the impact it was making, then I started to realize this is something bigger than just putting on some face paint, having some fun and cheering on our great club. And it became a way for me firstly to navigate through the hard times, because I needed to have, like, believe it or not, there were times I was actually scared shitless to go out there week in, week out, dressed up with face paint. I mean, I copped it on social media and on forums to the point of maybe copying it is a bit too dramatic, but people like,
sledging.
A lot of sledging. Like, who the hell is this lunatic? And I doubted myself and thought to myself, what am I doing? Is it really worth it? Will people really get it? And it's really important to point out the transition that happens when I put the face paint and become the character. And what it comes down to is when I do transition and how I transition and get into the character, what I told myself is, when I go out there, the question is, what impact am I going to be making when I go out there? What is the purpose? And that was what drove me to come back week in, week out, because eventually people realized he's just one of us. He's a fan. And that's basically all I am, just a little bit crazy.
Hey, we've all got a little bit crazy in us. And that was actually going to be my follow-up question. When you're there in the kennel, and look, I think what you do is awesome. I think it's great that, particularly for the younger kids who may not necessarily, and you'd know this, you've got a young child, kids absorb everything. They're sponges. And I think as an experience, a kid can watch a game of rugby league anywhere. They can watch a game of rugby league at their local park. They could be watching it on the television. But the fact that they get to be at a stadium and almost see a mascot, real life, that's so close, and I'm sure you've had that awesome fulfillment of a child wanting a photo with you. How did you necessarily justify, all right, you know what, I'm going to keep turning up even when you're getting sledged, or even when someone's saying, what's a grown man doing wearing face paint, for example? What was your motivation to say, this isn't worth it, or this is worth it, and I'm just going to keep going with this?
Well, you brought up a very important aspect of the whole experience, and that is the impact on children and the family unit. That's a very, very, very important and critical part when it comes to sport and fan engagement, is encouraging families to get to the game. And very importantly, and most importantly, to get our grassroots, our kids, to be excited. Because, and this is not just me, like, we're all role models. So we have to lead by our actions. And that's what motivated me, by the actions that I do and perform the impact that it makes on a child, it's something so profound. You can't, like, for me, when I see, like, on the weekend, there was this little baby. It was like probably similar to my little one, 20 months. The father was still holding him, and we were doing peekaboo, and it was just, his face just lit up. And seeing like the little kids, cheering, and just it's almost like it's an escape. It's a way to be a role model. But like I said, I'm just a fan. We are all role models. I'm no special. No, I'm not. There's not what I'm doing. It's not. I don't see. I'm just being me, and I've always loved taking things to the next level because I enjoy it. I just love it. I love getting people excited. Different nationalities. In particular, I think diversity is a very beautiful thing about our club, and we need to embrace that.
No, 100% agree, and well said, Alfie. Let's. Well, before we talk about the game, I will just ask you. You've obviously been supporting the club a long time. Actually, I'm sorry. I'm going to semi-insult you here. You mentioned that your earliest memory of the Dogs was 94. I hate to tell you that that's the year I was born. But nonetheless, thank you for joining me. And I wish you obviously a long and prosperous life. But let me ask you, who is your favorite Bulldogs player in the time that you've been supporting the club?
All time?
All time.
It have to be Terry Lamb.
What is it about Terry Lamb? What made him so special for those fans who, because the game's changed so much, even from my earliest memories to now, the sort of 5'8" that Terry Lamb was, it doesn't really exist anymore. What made Terry Lamb so special?
Just the way, so many things. The way he read the game, he was so smart. He was like, as Ray Warren would say, like probably the best support player that he's seen in a long time. His toughness. He was the epitome. One of the epitomes of being a Bulldog. That kind of gritty attitude and drive. He was truly, and is truly a Bulldog.
His support play is the thing that it's so simple in theory, right? Like run and always support the ball. But it's amazing how many times I'll watch the Bulldogs, particularly over the last few years, make a half break. Someone's through the line and it's like, where's that support player to just be there, get on the ball? And it comes down to an alertness, a fitness, but a desire. And I think all the things you've summed up there, grit, determination, it is everything that when you think of the Bulldogs and the times that we have been successful or lucky enough to win premierships, it's always been on the back of gritty defense. That's why you have the saying dogs of war, right? And I think that's what the Bulldogs do well, better than other clubs have done in our history since 1935. Let's bring it to 2022. It's been a grim couple of years, but we have reason for optimism after a massive recruitment drive. We've just wrapped up round 2. So we are recording this post the narrow loss against the Brisbane Broncos. Bulldogs 10, Brisbane Broncos 16. What were your overall thoughts of the game? Obviously, we'll talk about some positives and maybe some opportunities where the Bulldogs can improve. But what did you make of the 80 minutes in summary?
Look, in summary, and it's something that we've been missing for a long time, is being competitive, playing the full 80 minutes.
Yeah.
Like something so simple, but we haven't seen that for so long. And I'm sure all Dogs fans watching and listening will agree. Like, all we wanted is for them to make us proud. Just make us proud. Get in there, back each other up, play the full 80 minutes. And I like to think they've freaking did that, and they are doing that. There's a lot to do. There's a lot of work that needs to be done. But in my opinion, there's great signs there.
Agree. On great signs, I just want to highlight 2 players. I might highlight 3 because I'm all about the love here. But Matt Burton, mate, what is it? 2-year deal, 3rd year in his option. If I'm the Bulldogs, don't worry about that 3rd option. Get him on a long-term deal now. I've seen enough in 2 games to suggest this guy is going to be an absolute superstar in that 6 jersey. And I just want to read out some numbers here from the game last night. 421 kick meters, 133 meters gained, 1 line break, 5 tackle busts. He was absolutely everywhere, and he's busy. And it's something that the Bulldogs have lacked in the halves for a long period of time. What are you thinking about Matt Burton? Are you impressed with what you're seeing so far? And where is his ceiling? How high do you think he can go in the game?
Well, let's look at the last question. Like, the sky's the limit. How old is he? Like, how young is he?
Just
He's
turned
like,
22,
24?
I believe.
22.
Yeah.
Like, he's far from peaking in my books. I think let's not. I don't want to sound I don't want to sound negative about this, but I think he's got. You can tell he's got the right attitude, and that's what I love about him. He's quite composed. He's level-headed. You can just see how he plays, and how he conducts himself. His presence. So I always say, especially with young players, let's just not give him too much pressure. But I mean, how are we going to give him pressure? But if you know what I'm saying,
Sure.
I think it's something that's going to grow. I would like to see him grow over time, and he will grow over time, and he will just develop into, I think, something. He's got the potential to be someone as a player, someone very special, very special.
Yeah.
I mean, he's been compared. I can't remember who it was. He's been compared to Joey Johns. I mean, it's a massive compliment. I think that the quote I saw was shades of Joey or shades of Johns.
Yeah, he's definitely a runner first, but I think that that's a good thing. I think you want that from your halves. If I think of Joey
100%.
Johns and all good halves, I think people get so fixated in, if he doesn't put a player through a hole, he's a bad half. But that's not necessarily the case. I think what you want from your half is finding the right balance and the right time to take the right option. If I look at a Matt Burton or a Jake Avalero or a Carl Flanagan or whoever occupies the 6 and 7 shirt, it's knowing when to run, knowing when to kick, knowing when your forward pack is on the back foot, kick it in a touch, allow the team to catch their breath. So I think what I'm with you, what you want to see from Matt Burton is just continue to see that maturity into his game, but at the same time, while he is young, still continue to develop and enjoy playing your football. I know it's obviously a fine act and it's a results-based business, but I hopefully with the guidance of Trent Barrett, Phil Gould and co, we get that balance right and we see Burton in the Bulldog shirt for a long time to come. I want to move it into the forward pack now. Tavita Pangai Jr. made his debut against his former club last night. 7 offloads, 18 hit-ups for 150 meters. Now, I can feel people watching this video yelling at me saying, yeah, but he's on report and he's ill-disciplined and there's other aspects to his game. But I love this guy. I think he's exactly what our pack needed. A bit of dynamism, a bit of pace, but he offers second phase play. And I think that that's something this pack has lacked for many years.
I think it'll come down to, look, I put a lot of faith in the training squad to really guide Pangai to, just be patient.
Is that the right term?
Yeah, definitely. Like he just needs to, work on his he just needs that balance, in terms of you want to go hard, but at the same time, you like it's a fair argument. Like, you don't want to be giving away penalties. Like, it's just, there's no point being aggressive. It kind of reminds me a bit like, I mean, look at Willie Mason, absolute legend. But remember where he started. I don't know if you remember where he started. He was quite reckless.
Yeah, absolutely. Afro Mason.
Okay. Sorry?
Afro Mason. Afro Mason was the reckless Mason.
That's right. That's right. But with the right guidance, and I think we have that in our club. I'm confident. We've got the likes of Phil Gould. I mean, I don't need to, you know, talk about Phil Gould. We all know Phil Gould and what he's capable in terms of bringing to the club and leadership. I think we need to give Barrett some time. I think it's early days. This is the first time he's got a decent roster. Okay, but going back to Pangai, he just needs the right guidance. And also, let me just jump to another player, Hetherington. You know, he's got massive potential, but he just needs to chill out, man. Just chill out. I just find I was watching very actually carefully on Sunday last night, and it's almost like his mind's like here and there, and like it's just, I don't know. I mean, I'm no mind reader, but that just his body language just seemed a little bit erratic. Hence, those 2 drop balls, like really, they're sitters. They just don't. They should not happen. You know. So I feel that he's.
Sorry to interrupt you. What I'm thinking, I'm interested to see if you're on the same wavelength as I am. I think with Hetherington, he wants to play a certain way, and I think he goes out to do that. But then he's also got the coach in his ear saying, don't give away penalties. When you're in the ruck, make sure you're getting off. And I think, I'm just wondering, is he almost in a battle in his own head where he wants to do something a certain way, and then he's also got the coach in the back of his mind, and maybe he's getting a bit distracted. So every time he's getting the ball, he's thinking twice, and that's leading to errors or penalties.
Quite possibly. Hence why I think he's just lacking focus. You know, he just seems a bit of
players. Hetherington and Pangai Jr. What are their best positions? Because I think both players find themselves in a similar situation where we don't know if they're middle forwards, we don't know if they're edge forwards. Where are their best positions? Because we've seen Hetherington being deployed in the back row. We've seen some arguments saying put him back in the middle, but he was dynamic toward the back end of last season on the edge. So where do you sit on this side of the argument with both players?
Look, I'm not sure, to be honest. I think once he gets his focus aligned, I mean, on the edge, he could be like a real threat to the opposition. You know, all he needs to do is bust a couple of players and then get a sneaky little bit like O'Mealy used to do. You know, Mark O'Mealy was infamous for that. I mean, mate, he was one of the best. You know, so I'm going to lean towards that. He would be a massive opportunity to keep him on the edge and allow those opportunities where he can just slip that little pass by using his controlled aggression and grit to bust through a play or two and just get enough space and put those balls through. Because that was one of the things that made us great, was even in the early, very early Hasler era.
Yeah. 2012 was a good year.
Yeah, it was. And we'll just leave it at that because then I'll start going to a rant and things like that. You don't want to hear it. But early Hasler years, you know, that's deployment of his tactics with the forwards, passing the ball, you know, getting little flick passes out, you know, the edge forwards. I can see that. I can see Hetherington being that player. But again, he has to, I don't know, he needs to work on his mindset. Look, I'm no sports psychologist or, you know, obviously I'm not a trained coach or anything like that. I know there seems to be a lot of coaches online. That's a joke.
That's a good way to put it.
That's a joke. Look, everyone's entitled to their opinion, and that's the beauty of our or any club and fans, is that we've got different opinions. But let's not sway away. To answer your question, yes, I think he'll be potentially a long-term edge forward.
Yeah, I'm with you. I think you touched on a good point there. And before we go into where the Bulldogs can potentially improve, I think we just all need to take a dose of reality and remember where this club has been over the last few years. I don't think you go from coming wooden spooners to premiership winners. So maybe that we just need to temper our expectation and acknowledge whether players are selected or we're not playing a certain way that you're not potentially fond of. It will take time. We're round 2 into a 26-round season. I'm sure if players are out of form, they will be held accountable and things will evolve as the season progresses. So I just asked all Bulldogs fans, and I know you're obviously agreeing with me on this point, stay calm. It's okay. As long as we are competitive, we'll win more games than we lose. And that's really all we can hope for after the last few years. But talking about where the Bulldogs could potentially improve. Look, we've seen it online. Jaden Okunbor got targeted last night, got found out of position a couple of times. I think that's something that can be fixed. I don't necessarily put that down to an ability thing. I just think, look, I played rugby league. I know I didn't make the NRL or anything like that, but I played a lot of wing, and it's a lot of what happens inside you dictates what you do. I don't think it's as simple as the winger is out of position. It's his fault. He is the reason why these tries are happening. There's a communication from the fullback. There's a communication with your inside men. There are a multitude of factors of why tries go down that way. It's not as simple as a player's out of position. He's the reason we lost.
Totally. Look, that's he's on the right-hand side, right? Yeah, that right-hand side.
Yeah. So, and we've got Braden Burns out there, and that's another factor. It's a new combination.
Look, there's new combinations happening. Look, the team in general is still gelling, okay? But look, I don't want to come across that I'm dodging the whole question in terms of, look, Okunbor didn't have a great game. There's you know, I think there's 2 tries that he basically, like that right-hand side were the 2 tries that they scored, right?
Yeah.
Sorry, it's late and I'm kind of second guessing myself.
Right.
But anyway, going back to, look, like you said, we don't know what's going through their head. Okay. I mean, look, he had a shocker. He had a shocker. But I believe he's a great athlete. He is a great athlete. And a lot of people, I'm sure, they're like, oh, come on, man, he's this, he's that. You know, that's fundamental for rugby league. You know, you stay in your wing. I get that. But I think I'm guessing here, but there could be some underlying things there, some confidence, right? Issues. Like psychology for me is a big thing for me.
Oh, it's everything.
It's everything. I take it of the highest regard. It's something that we need to, I think any club needs to take seriously, because your mindset, like you said, will dictate how you basically perform and how you respond. And it could make or break your night. So I think there's a lot of things there that is distracting Okunbor. But at the same time, it is first grade. It's NRL.
Yeah.
You've got to show up. This is not park football. You know, and I say this with complete respect. I mean, I've met
absolutely
on a couple of occasions, and we've chatted, and you know, he's a great guy. You know, but at the same time, you know, I think, you know, there could be a case where it's, yeah, you know, if there is a confidence thing there, then it needs to be addressed, because at the end of the day, it's first grade, and we need results.
I'm split on this one, and the reason I suppose I even ask or put the question to you is because he was brilliant last week. Not just good, he was very good. And the thing that I think is getting overshadowed, and where I think the Bulldogs have particularly struggled, it's not as simple as Bulldogs don't score points over the last few years. I mean, that's obvious. But where the Bulldogs have really struggled for me is the back 5 don't make enough yardage out of their own end. And I think that's put immense pressure on our forward pack. And I look at the improvements already this season. Our back 5 are making the meters in our own end, and I think that's setting a good platform for our forwards.
Mm-hmm.
And Okunbor is a massive part of that. I mean, his power, I mean, he's a big physical guy, right? He's probably one of the tallest players in the team. I like what he does in terms of how he makes meters outside from our own half. And the thing is, there are enough players in the NRL with his attributes that I think with the right coaching, he could fine tune. I actually really want him to do well. I played at St. Christopher's rugby league club when Ockenball was there. He was actually a few years younger than us. We called him Mini Jamal because he obviously had the same hairstyle as Jamal Idris, and and similar attributes too in terms of their size, physicality. I think there's a lot of ability there. I really hope he gets it right. And he's a local kid too. So just another reminder to Bulldogs fans, just remember that there's always a human being on the other side of these things. They're going out there absolutely trying to do their best. They're not trying to concede tries or anything like that. So just be mindful in your criticism. But I'm with you.
Criticism, I think criticism's fine. I just think at the same time, we just need to be respectful.
Absolutely.
So that goes with anyone, any team, in general. So,
what do you make of the spine so far this season? I'm split on this one because you see the potential. I think Avellero looks better, but I still think, while I think there's an absolute quality player there, are we putting a square peg into a round hole? Is he a halfback? I'm like, you're grinting, I'm grinting, and I think that says all you need to know. Are we trying?
I think without doubt, Averillo is another great athlete. He's pretty fast. Yeah, he's got speed.
He's pacey, agile, powerful.
Very powerful. Is he a halfback? I don't know. I don't think. No, he's not a halfback. And when I say, how do we define a halfback? Well, halfback is obviously someone with a kicking game, but Burden's got an amazing kicking game. But someone that actually can basically has direction. Very simply, has direction in the plays. That has leadership. 100%. And that's what I mean by leadership. And he just doesn't have that. And could that be an age thing? I don't think so. I just think he's just not suited for that position. It's not a bad or a good thing. It's just the way it is. But at the same time, why is it that, I guess the question is, why is it that he's put into number 7 when, let me throw that question back to you, maybe, because I'm trying to figure it out. Why aren't we not giving Flanagan a go?
God knows. That's the mystifying one. I'm
actually asking not as a rhetorical question. Like I'm just wondering, why is it that he's not given a go?
It's honestly a great question, and that's the thing. I think we're 2 rounds in, so I'm not going to overreact. Maybe Avellero, if you and I were having this conversation in 4 weeks' time, maybe he's the best halfback we've had since Brent Sherwin.
True.
Now, obviously, I'm going to hope for that. I don't think that's going to happen. But in saying that, look, if the New South Wales Cup side had a really positive victory, I've only seen highlights. I haven't seen the full game, so I'm not going to sit here and tell you Flanagan was the organising maestro that we want. In saying that, if he continues to perform well and the New South Wales Cup side continues to get results while first grade side doesn't, there might be an opportunity there. But I think we'll just have to wait and see. I got to say as well, Marshall King, I like him. The more he plays first grade, he looks more and more comfortable. But he might find himself in an awkward position next season, obviously, with the signing of Reid Mahoney. But that's for 2023. I don't want to keep you all night. But I think that's a good way to sum up the game. What are your predictions or what are your expectations of the Bulldogs this season? We've already said we expect them to be competitive, that they're showing that grit that we're expecting. But in terms of, look, it is a results-based business after all. What do you consider a successful season for the Blue and Whites this year?
I really think they can make the top 8. If they fine-tune some of the things that we brought up tonight, okay, and they continue to gel better and better each week, the talent is there. Our halves are fantastic. Yes, we did say that Averillo is just not an ideal number 7. Having said that, he's a superb athlete. So it's not like he's doing an awful job. It's just not an ideal position for him. Let's make that very clear.
He's in the Bulldogs' best 17. That's for sure. It's just a matter of when.
100%, 100%. And I think over time, potentially those two can build something like, Averillo and Burton. So, but going back to, I really think our dogs can make the top 8. And, from what we've come from the last 2 years, I think anything in the top 10 is a great result this year, realistically. But I'd love to see them in the top 8. I think they can do it. I really believe it.
I'll keep your optimism. Look, I'm not going to change my prediction. I said the Dogs will finish 9th. Look, if I said it with my heart, I'll tell you we could make the 8. I think we can make the 8. I just think we'll need a little bit of luck to get there. I think it'll take it's not a matter of, I think the Dogs are improving. I just look at the other sides and like for example, Cronulla Sharks. I thought their victory against Parramatta was so impressive. And then I look at the Knights and what they did without Kalen Ponga over the weekend. And I'm just looking at the other side. So I'm like, okay, well, if they're all in the 8, how do the Bulldogs get in? And I think that's where I'm sort of split. I think we'll need a little bit of luck to get there, but I'm with you. I think a top 10 finish is positive. And then if we get close, then we're definitely in the right place. I'll ask you one more question on the Dogs and we'll look to wrap up, but there's obviously been a lot of change, not just on the field, but also off the field. We've seen Phil Gould come in a very senior and predominant position. He's influencing a lot of change. We've seen a lot of players from yesteryear come in. Willie Mason's involved with the club. Randy Matua's involved with the club.
Fantastic.
Sonny B. Williams is meant to be coming back to the club as well. Brent Sherwin was at some sort of clinic last week. The other important factor, and I know people don't, it's boring to talk about the board, but unfortunately, when you talk about Canterbury, you have to talk about the board because it's something that's been unfortunately embedded as part of this club's success or lack of in its entire history. The current board has remained in place for 1 year successive. They went uncompeted this year, which is always a positive result. It suggests there's no politics interfering with the football club. How do you feel about the off-field direction of the Bulldogs? Do you feel like we're setting up the foundations for success or sustained success is what I really should say? What's your opinion on what's going on in the back end?
I think very much so that they are setting the right foundation. For starters, bringing on those awesome legends that you mentioned is a great move. Those guys will be fantastic role models and mentors to our squad. And you just can't put a price to that. You just can't. What they offer is invaluable. It's priceless and it's huge. And we're very blessed that they've come back together to mentor the squad. I think they bring so much to the table. So that alone is a massive forward step by the Bulldogs. Well done. They're advocating. I don't know specifically, but I know they're being very not cautious is the right word, but they're advocating on being careful about gambling. So they've really been conscious about protecting that. What are they? I'm just trying to think of what they're basically put in place a campaign where to promote.
I've seen this. A number of clubs.
So I think it's to promote being sensible, like sensible. You know what? Delete that. I don't remember what it is, so just delete that.
No, that's fine.
But going back to what you asked about what they're putting in place, strong foundations. They've got the legends that are great role models and mentors, and I think we haven't had any. I think it's also good to mention that we haven't heard anything. When you don't have any news, no news at the Bulldogs is good news as well.
Absolutely.
Right. So they're obviously are very conscious about that, and they put things in place to just ensure that our squad is tight. There's a sense of mateship. Maybe, you know, the breakdancing is great. Maybe not too much that it.
Oh, sorry. You're referring to the Reclaim the Game, the sports betting.
Reclaim the Game campaign.
Yeah.
I think that's a great move forward, because yes, gambling is something that can be done responsibly, but it's also important to advocate, to push that envelope about being responsible and the consequences of not being so. So again, well done to the Bulldogs for that campaign. Very important.
Yeah, absolutely. And I gotta say, I'm really excited about what Phil Gould's doing. I think you can bring in any sort of general manager. I think anyone can put the right foundations in place. But I think I can't emphasize this point enough. And I know it sounds like a cliche. He knows what it means to be a Bulldog. And I know that almost sounds lazy, and you can't necessarily put a value on that or quantify that. And maybe I can't even draw for you what that looks like. But I think there's just something in the walls that, if you've ever attended a game at Belmore Sports Ground, I think you'll know what I'm talking about. I know you have. And if you haven't had the opportunity to do that, please do it. The Bulldogs do it twice a year. It's a special occasion. We haven't gotten to do it last year. I don't even think we did it in 2020 either. If they do it this year and you haven't been to Belmore Sports Ground, I highly recommend you do it. Even if you're not a Bulldogs fan, go in there and just feel the culture that is on the walls, because you genuinely feel it. It's a special club. It really is. And I think Phil Gould just understands what those walls are made of. And I think you can pull in any successful football operator and they can probably build the club, set the club up to be successful. But like we touched on Des Hasler earlier, the Bulldogs were being successful, but it didn't feel like the Bulldogs. It wasn't the Bulldog way, was it? And I think there's an identity that the fans resonate with, and we want success our way. We don't want success that comes in the model that someone else foresees for the club.
It's just it wouldn't be the right fit, and it wouldn't reflect the true Bulldog. And you know, you talk about Belmore Sports Ground, like, you know, that's a spiritual home.
Yeah.
And let's focus on the word spiritual. You know, spiritual is a very, very deep concept. There's multiple layers there. There's history. There's you know, the legends that walked that paddock, that walked through those sheds. Like that stuff there, that's, you know, it's almost like you know, it's really special. You know, it's something you can't replicate, you know. So yeah, it's fantastic that they're really bringing that to the table, and then allowing the current squad to understand, you know, the level and the different layers that are involved in Belmore. You know, because it's a special place. When you go to Belmore and you haven't been to Belmore, you just get this feeling, you know.
Yeah,
it's amazing.
100% agree with you, and I think that's a good place for us to leave it. Bravedog, also known as Alfie, but also known as Bravedog. It's been an absolute pleasure. Thank you for joining us. Look, we'll definitely have to get you on another time. But look, pleasure, mate. I hope the next time we hopefully have this conversation, we are discussing a win, of course, but it's been very in-depth. I've really enjoyed it. It's been a pleasure. And I also got to say, like we always say on here, make sure you like the video. If you are new, do subscribe. And if you don't subscribe, you can go for 10.
You're gone. We'll add one more thing, which is actually something I forgot to add. It's very important with regard to my mission. Is that okay that
Of course, floor's yours.
So part of my mission, and a lot of you probably know this already, is that through online, and very much so when I go to games, I ask the question. And this question here is it's to promote positive mindsets. And that question is what it means for you to be brave. And that question there is to give people an invitation to have a voice. And that's a big part of what what my mission is all about, is giving people a voice. And so then people realize that, you know what, it's okay to say that you're not okay. It's okay to talk about your feelings, whether you're male, female, young and old. So, Larry, I'm going to give you the opportunity. I love for you to answer the question. What does it mean for you to be brave?
I think being brave is being yourself without fear of judgment or consequence. Well, not fear of judgment, fear of consequences for being yourself. I think having the ability to walk in your own skin, know that it's not necessarily going to be for everyone. The decisions you make, what you believe in, is not going to please everybody. But knowing that the person you are is someone that you're comfortable with, that you wake up every day feeling like the skin you're in fits like the clothes you put on your back. It's about being true to who you are, holding yourself to the right values, being respectful of everyone and what they stand for, making sure you're listening and listen to absorb and respond, not just to get your opinion out there. Be yourself, and be yourself without consequence. I think that's, to me, that's what it means to be brave.
Great answer. Love it.
Thank you.
All right, Larry, it's been a pleasure, mate.
I couldn't
Absolute
say
pleasure.
I didn't practice that either.
No, it's straight from the heart, and that's what it's all about.
No, thanks for asking us. And I think that's a really important message. So to anyone out there, be brave. And if you are going through anything, there's lots of help out there. I'll be sure to leave that in the description as well.
Call Lifeline. If any of you are going through a hard time, contact Lifeline.
Beyond Blue, they're fantastic as well.
Hang on, let me just bring up it's very important that if I mention Lifeline, I do mention the number 131114. Okay, so and don't be afraid to talk to your mates. And talk to anybody that is that you feel you can. There's nothing wrong with that. I've gone through my demons and hard, challenging times, and I learned to speak up and go, you know what, man, I'm not doing good, and I need to talk about it. So it's very important.
No, 100%. Thank you for sharing that, Brave Dog. Really appreciate it. And
to finish up for me, up the mighty Bulldogs.
Up the mighty Bulldogs. Mate, it's been an absolute pleasure. Thank you. And hope you've all liked the video, and we'll see you in the next one. Cheers.